When the EVA1 was announced last summer, we told everyone there would be a bunch of additional functions that were going to come later on, early 2018. Well, here is EVA 2.0. This new firmware has lots of new functions. First off, video output. Out of the SDI, you can switch that from being traditional regular video signal to instead being a raw data output. Raw data in 5.7K up to 30 frames per second, 4K up to 60 frames per second, 2K up to 240 frames per second. Now the 5.7K, that's the full Super 35 sensor. 4K is native 4K resolution. So it's slightly windowed down from the 5.7K to a 4/3 image area on the camera sensor. And then the 2K HD, that's derived from the 4K. So that's going to be the same 4/3 image area, but it'll be able to get up to 240 frames per second. That's raw data that outputs to one of our partner companies that will then have a recorder to be able to process and capture that material. In addition to that, we also have more internal recording formats. So when the camera first was announced and was first shipping, it had long GOP internal recording. That's for 4K as well as 2K and HD. We're now adding all-eye recordings. Now, all-eye will have that available in 4K up to 30 frames per second and 2K or HD up to 120 frames per second, and that's 10-bit 422. Why would I use long GOP versus recording in all-eye in any given situation? They're both available in the camera. Well, long GOP is a group of photos, group of frames, and so that compresses over a larger number of frames. It's actually a smaller recording. Long GOP is 150 megabits per second as its highest data rate, but it's grabbing a number of frames at a time to do that compression. And so it's more work in post, even though it takes up less room on your card, more work in post. You might need to have a more powerful computer to be able to deal with processing those files in real time to be able to edit with them. Whereas all-eye, even though it is a larger file format, all-eye data compression in 4K is going to get up to 400 megabits per second, and in 2K or HD is going to get up to 200 megabits per second. It's a recording format, takes up more room on the card. However, it is intra-frame, meaning that each frame individually is compressed. That's less work for a computer to process on the way out. So you could probably take that and be able to work with those files on a laptop. In addition to those recording formats, we are also introducing Interlace recording. Now, that is an Interlace recording in all-eye or in long GOP, 100 megabit per second recording format in 1920 by 1080. So that's your 5994 and your 50i Interlace recording formats available in those two different codecs. We also have interval recording, and again, in all-eye and in long GOP. Interval recording is individual video frames, so you can use that for time-lapse or for video animation. With all of those recording formats, we also have introduced some other functionality for accessory items. So with our previous firmware, we added support for the Sigma art lenses, 6 additional Sigma art lenses. That is 2 zooms as well as 4 primes. And in addition to those, now with this firmware update, we're adding additional support for 2 of the Canon Cine servo zooms, the compact Cine servo zooms. There's an 18-80 and a 70-200. Now we supported these lenses already, but we've added some functionality to them. So in addition to having these zooms being able to be powered off of the camera on the lens, there's also focus and iris controls. And what we've added now is where the hand grip on the camera plugs in, you can instead plug in a remote for a controller on a pan arm, or other way that you might want to rig that, and you're not only going to power and control things on the lens, on the camera, but as well control functions on the lens. And if that remote control is not enough, we also have enabled with the next version of the EVA ROP wireless control, not only of the camera, but as well the functions on the lens, the iris and the focus and the zoom. Lots of other little functions that are in this new firmware. There's improvements in some of the video recording. There's improvements in the video outputs and functions you can have on them. Improvements on some of the monitoring controls on the camera, as well as some of the interfaces available to you for controlling functions on the camera. Many, many functions, lots of stuff in the new EVA 2.0, really rounding out the camera, available March 2018.
Panasonic.